The two-income trap and the system that built it. In 1970, one person earning a median income could afford a home, raise children, build savings, and retire with dignity. Today, two people doing exactly the same cannot. Not because we're reckless. Not because we spend more on luxuries. Not because we didn't work hard enough. Because we walked directly into a trap that was optimized to look like prosperity, and we brought our partners with us. The promise was mathematically simple. If one income could support a family, two incomes should support that same family and generate surplus. Double the input, double the security, twice the margin. That's not a personal finance theory. That is arithmetic. Except it didn't work out that way. What actually happened is one of the most precisely engineered financial reversals in modern economic history, accomplished without force, without legislation, without anyone being told it was happening. It was accomplished by making it look like progress. In 1973, federal labor policy in the United States was restructured in ways that systematically suppressed wage growth for hourly workers. The median male wage has barely moved in real terms since 1979. Adjusted for inflation, the typical worker in 2024 earns roughly what a typical worker earned 45 years ago. This is not an accident. It is not incompetence. It is a documented outcome of deliberate policy choices. Choices that created a specific problem for working families. The problem: one income was no longer enough. The solution the culture offered: send the second person to work. And millions of families did exactly that, because what else do you do when your income no longer covers the baseline? You go get another income. By 1980, female workforce participation had risen from 43% to 51%. By 2000, 60%. Today, over 62% of married couples with children have both parents in full-time employment. The backup plan had become the operating plan. The emergency reserve, deployed as the default. And here is where the trap begins to close. Because what happens to an economy when every household suddenly has twice the purchasing power? Prices adjust. This is the mechanism that Elizabeth Warren identified, and it is the part of the story almost nobody tells. Warren, before she became a senator, was a Harvard bankruptcy law professor. In 2003, she and her daughter analyzed over 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy in the United States. What they expected to find was reckless spending. What they found instead changed how they understood the entire American financial system. Families with two working parents were more likely to file for bankruptcy, not less. Not slightly more likely. Statistically, measurably more vulnerable to financial collapse, despite earning more money. And the reason was not what they spent their money on. It was what the market extracted from them before they ever got to choose. Housing. In the single-income era, families competed for homes based on one income. A median home in 1970, adjusted for today's dollars, cost around $200,000. The median household spent roughly 25% of income on housing. That left margin. That left room to absorb a shock. That left breathing space between what they earned and what they owed. Then, as two-income households became the norm, two sets of buyers competed for the same houses, with twice the combined purchasing power, and with banks willing to underwrite mortgages against two incomes instead of one. What happened to prices? They doubled. Then they kept going. The median home price in 2023, over $400,000. In high cost of living cities, that number becomes genuinely incomprehensible for a family trying to enter the market for the first time. But there is a detail inside this that closes the trap permanently. Quality public schools in the United States are funded through local property taxes, which means good schools exist in expensive neighborhoods, which means if you want your children in a decent school district, you don't pay tuition. You pay the mortgage. And the mortgage now requires two incomes to service. Warren called this the bidding war for educational opportunity. Every family with two incomes competed for homes in good school districts, driving prices up, until the price of admission to a quality public education became a $400,000 fixed cost that permanently required both incomes to sustain. You're not paying for private school. You're paying the equivalent in your housing costs forever. And once you sign that mortgage, the trap is closed. You cannot return to one income, not without losing the house, not without pulling your children from their school district, not without dismantling a life that was built around a cost structure you can no longer reduce. The decision that looked like a lifestyle upgrade was a permanent financial commitment with no exit. Now let's talk about what the second income is actually worth. Because the psychological trap runs on gross numbers, and gross numbers are designed to mislead. One partner earns $70,000, the other earns $50,000. Combined, $120,000. That sounds like security. That sounds like enough. Follow that $50,000 through the system. First, taxes. Because of how progressive brackets work, the second income stacks on top of the first. The first $70,000 fills the lower brackets. That additional $50,000 hits at the marginal rate. Federal, state, and payroll taxes on a second income can reach 30 to 35% depending on the state. That $50,000 becomes approximately $32,000 in actual take-home pay. Now, childcare. The average annual cost of full-time daycare in the United States is around $15,000 per child. 2 children, $30,000, before you've bought a single lunch, before you've driven a single mile. If you have 2 children, that $32,000 has already become $2,000. Add the second commute, the second car, payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, conservatively $8,000 per year. Now add what economists call the time cost substitution effect. 2 people working full-time means nobody has time to cook, clean, maintain the home, manage errands, or do the 100 tasks a household requires. So you pay for them: delivery, convenience food, cleaning services, lawn care, child enrichment activities to fill the hours when no parent is available. Studies put this exhaustion spending at $5,000 to $10,000 per year for dual-income households, compared to those where one person manages the domestic infrastructure. Run the numbers. $50,000 gross, minus $18,000 in taxes, minus $15,000 in childcare for one child, minus $8,000 in commuting, minus $7,000 in time cost substitutions. Net contribution, $2,000 per year. Someone is leaving the house at 7 a.m., sitting in traffic, managing workplace pressure for 8 to 10 hours, commuting home exhausted, barely present for their children, and the household is netting $2,000 for the year. $38 per week. Less than a grocery run. And yet, because the tax return shows $120,000, the couple makes every major financial decision as if they have $120,000. They qualify for the mortgage that requires $120,000. They take on the car payments that assume $120,000. They commit to a cost structure that demands $120,000 every year, indefinitely, or the entire structure fails at once. This is the psychological dimension of the trap. The gross number is used for every decision that increases fixed costs. The net number, the real number, is never calculated until it's already too late to act on it. Here is what the 1970s single-income family had that the modern dual-income family does not. Resilience. If the primary earner lost their job, became ill, was made redundant, suffered an accident, the stay-at-home partner could enter the workforce, not comfortably, not without adjustment, but the family would not collapse. There was a reserve income that could be activated in a crisis, a buffer that existed precisely because it had not yet been deployed. The dual-income family has already spent that buffer. Both incomes are fully committed to the monthly cost structure. If either partner loses their income, for any reason, the fixed costs remain exactly where they are. The mortgage does not adjust. The childcare does not adjust. The insurance does not adjust. The car payments do not pause. This is why Warren's research found what it found. The dual-income family is not more secure. It is operating at 100% capacity with zero redundancy, like a system with no error handling, no fallback, no margin for failure. Everything works perfectly until one variable changes, and then everything fails simultaneously. A 2019 Federal Reserve study found that nearly 40% of American adults could not cover a $400 unexpected expense without borrowing or selling something. Many of those adults are in households earning six figures. They are not broke because they earn too little. They are broke because their cost structure was built against the assumption that both incomes would flow perfectly, continuously, indefinitely. And the moment that assumption becomes false, the trap closes. Now, who benefits from this system? Because systems this precise do not emerge by accident. Banks benefit. When two incomes qualify for a mortgage, the loan balance doubles. The interest paid over 30 years doubles. The origination fees double. The bank does not care whether the family is two job losses from collapse. The bank holds the house as collateral. The childcare industry benefits. A $65 billion annual sector in the United States alone that exists almost entirely because both parents are required to work. The moment one income became insufficient, childcare became non-optional, non-negotiable, a fixed cost with no ceiling. Employers benefit. Workers with maximum fixed costs and no financial buffer cannot afford to quit, cannot afford to strike, cannot afford to negotiate aggressively, cannot afford to take professional risks. The dual-income family with a $3,000 monthly mortgage and $2,500 in childcare payments is among the most compliant labor forces ever produced, not through coercion, but through financial architecture. The system did not conspire against you. It was optimized by market forces, by policy choices, by decades of compounding incentives to extract maximum value from both incomes, leaving the family with the appearance of prosperity and none of the substance. This is not a personal finance failure. It is a structural outcome. And the families that escape it do not earn their way out. They restructure. The structural principle is this: your non-negotiable monthly expenses, your housing, your essential transport, your baseline commitments should be serviceable by one income alone. The second income becomes entirely discretionary. It does not fund fixed costs. It does not support the baseline. It builds. Emergency reserves first, then retirement accounts, then investments. Every dollar of the second income not spent on baseline costs is buying back something the trap stole. Optionality. The ability for one partner to step back if needed. The ability to absorb a shock without crisis. The ability to make decisions based on what is right for the family, not what is necessary to prevent losing the house this month. This requires deliberately buying less house than you qualify for, resisting the social pressure to upgrade your lifestyle when your income upgrades, tolerating the discomfort of appearing to live below your means while every peer around you leverages their dual income to the limit. But the payoff is not comfort. The payoff is freedom. Within a decade, the investments funded by that second income begin generating their own returns. Compounding builds a floor the couple can actually stand on, not a floor that requires both of them to keep running just to prevent it collapsing beneath them. One more thing, because this is Risk Engine, and we do not stop at the present. AI and automation are projected to eliminate or significantly restructure 30 to 40% of current job categories within the next 15 years. The roles most at risk are not the lowest paid positions. They are mid-tier professional roles: administrative, analytical, processing, coordination, logistics, customer-facing, exactly the roles that populate dual-income households in the highest numbers. If automation eliminates one income from a dual-income household that has structured its cost base around both, the trap does not just tighten, it collapses. The family that built its foundation on one income, that kept the second in reserve or in investments, has a buffer, time to adapt, room to absorb the disruption. The family that deployed both incomes into fixed costs has no fallback. Again, the structural vulnerability Elizabeth Warren identified in 2003 will be amplified by automation in ways that will make the coming decade financially devastating for millions of households that had no idea how exposed they were. The question is not whether the disruption is coming. It is which side of the structural divide you are on when it arrives. Risk Engine Analysis. The first insight: the two-income trap is not a spending problem, it is a pricing problem. The cost of shelter, education, and health care was systematically repriced against the assumption of two incomes. You cannot spend your way out of a repriced market. Only structural positioning, refusing to let your fixed costs expand to meet your combined gross, creates an exit. The second insight: the gross income number is a weapon used against you. Every lender, landlord, and institution that benefits from your spending capacity uses your combined gross to calibrate what you'll commit to. Your net, after taxes, childcare, commuting, and time cost substitutions, is the number that determines your actual financial position. Most dual-income couples have never calculated it. The third insight: financial resilience is not a savings balance. It is the gap between your fixed costs and your minimum sustainable income. A household with $200,000 saved and $8,000 in monthly fixed costs is less resilient than a household with $50,000 saved and $3,000 in monthly fixed costs. The trap is measured in fixed costs, not in earnings. The fourth insight: the backup plan is the most valuable financial asset a household can hold. The single-income family of 1970 held it in reserve. The dual-income family of today has deployed it as the operating budget. Recovering that optionality, the ability to absorb one lost income without collapse, is more protective than any investment return. The fifth insight: the system that created the trap benefits from you staying in it. Banks need you maximally leveraged. Employers need you financially unable to leave. The childcare sector requires both of you at work. Escaping the trap is not just a personal finance decision. It is a deliberate act of structural non-compliance with a system that profits from your exposure, and the families who make that choice early build something the market cannot take from them. There is a version of this story where two incomes built something, where the second income funded the emergency reserve instead of the mortgage upgrade, where the house was bought for what one income could carry, not for what two incomes could qualify for, where the bidding war was refused, where the trap was seen before it closed. That version of the story exists. People live it. They are not always the highest earners in the room, but they are the ones who can afford to make decisions, career decisions, family decisions, risk decisions, based on what they actually want, not based on what the monthly nut requires. The two-income trap is not inevitable, but it requires seeing it clearly before you are already inside it. And for most families, the clearest view comes when it is already too late to use it. The question is simple. Are you building on two incomes, or building toward one? Because the answer to that question will determine not just your financial future, but whether you have one you actually chose. Risk engine. We map the systems others pretend don't exist.